There are moments in life when the simplest gestures ripple far beyond their origin, carrying the power to reshape lives, communities, and futures. Our story begins on a quiet rural road in the heart of North Carolina, where Alexander Hayes, a man who seemingly has it all, encounters a boy who shows him what true wealth means. This tale is not merely about what transpired that fateful day, but about the extraordinary transformations that followed, a testament to how one small act of kindness can ignite profound change. Alexander Hayes was no ordinary traveler. His name resonated in business circles as the symbol of relentless ambition and success. Born into modest beginnings, he had built a multi-million-dollar empire, priding himself on self-made success. Yet, as his bank account swelled, so too did an intangible void in his heart. He had everything except peace. That day, fate had plans for Alexander. A flat tire in the middle of nowhere is enough to irritate anyone, especially a man accustomed to instant solutions. Alexander's luxury car rolled to a halt on a desolate stretch of road, the elegant hum of its engine replaced by silence. With no signal to call for assistance and the midday sun beating down, Alexander faced an unfamiliar problem: helplessness. Then, like a mirage, a figure emerged, a boy no older than 13, with a dusty baseball cap, patched up overalls, and a smile brighter than the sun itself. "Need a hand?" the boy asked, his tone friendly, with no trace of hesitation or expectation. Alexander's first instinct was skepticism. People rarely offered help without a hidden agenda, especially in his world. But Logan, as the boy introduced himself, radiated something rare, genuine sincerity. Without waiting for permission, Logan knelt beside the car, inspecting the flat tire. He retrieved a modest tool set from his bicycle basket and got to work. For Alexander, watching Logan was like witnessing an act from another era, an age of unhurried generosity. The boy worked with a quiet confidence, his hands steady and skilled. "You're good at this," Alexander remarked, breaking the silence. Logan chuckled, brushing sweat from his brow. "Fixing things is fun. Makes the world a little better, you know." When the task was done, Alexander reached into his wallet, offering a crisp $100 bill as thanks. Logan shook his head, stepping back. "I didn't do it for money, sir," he said. "Just glad I could help." This refusal struck Alexander in a way he couldn't quite explain. He pressed Logan again, even offering more, but the boy was resolute. "Money's not everything," Logan said, his voice carrying a wisdom far beyond his years. "What matters is helping when you can." As Logan pedaled away, Alexander sat in his car, his wallet still in hand, overwhelmed by an unfamiliar sensation: shame. For years, he had measured worth in terms of currency and transactions. Yet here was a boy, with so little, who saw the world so differently. Alexander couldn't drive away, not yet. He needed to know more about this boy with the heart of gold. The chapters ahead will delve deeper into Logan's humble life, the challenges his family faces, and the transformative journey Alexander embarks on. Each step unravels a truth often forgotten in the chase for success: that the most profound wealth lies in connections, compassion, and community. Stay with me as we uncover a tale that proves how the smallest actions can inspire the grandest changes. Engage with us by sharing your thoughts below. Kindness is the wealth that grows when shared. Let us know how kindness has shaped your life. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories that remind us of what truly matters. Alexander couldn't shake the encounter from his mind. Driving away felt like leaving behind not just a boy, but a moment that demanded deeper understanding. A successful man like him wasn't used to unanswered questions, and Logan had left him with one profound query: why would someone refuse money so readily, especially when they seemed to have so little? Determined to find out more, Alexander took a turn toward Asheville, the nearest town, hoping to retrace the path of the boy who had just altered the course of his thoughts. As he arrived in Asheville, Alexander was greeted by a small, tight-knit community where everyone seemed to know each other. He parked his car near a diner, stepping out into a world vastly different from the high-rise offices and luxury establishments he frequented. The air was filled with the aroma of freshly baked pies, and laughter echoed from children playing near a park. It was quaint, yet unpolished, a place where simplicity and resilience lived side by side. Inside the diner, Alexander approached the counter. A cheerful woman greeted him, her apron speckled with flour. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her tone as warm as the coffee she poured. Alexander hesitated, unsure how to begin. Finally, he said, "I'm looking for a boy named Logan. He helped me earlier today, and I wanted to thank him." The woman's face lit up with recognition. "Ah, that's our Logan, sweet kid, always helping folks. You'll find him at the old Miller farm on the outskirts. His family's been there for generations." The Miller farm was not what Alexander expected. The house was small and weathered, its paint peeling from years of exposure to sun and rain. Chickens wandered freely, and a rusted swing set stood in the yard, creaking with the breeze. Despite its modest appearance, the place exuded a sense of warmth and belonging. Alexander approached the front door, but before he could knock, Logan appeared from around the corner, carrying a bucket of feed for the chickens. "Mr. Hayes," Logan exclaimed, clearly surprised. "What are you doing here?" Alexander smiled, realizing that the boy's genuine nature was not confined to their earlier encounter. "I came to say thank you," Alexander replied, "and to meet the family of a boy who's made me rethink a lot about life." Logan seemed puzzled but led Alexander inside without hesitation. The Hayes were a family of modest means, but their hospitality was boundless. Logan introduced his parents, a hard-working couple who radiated pride in their son. They offered Alexander a seat at the kitchen table, serving him a slice of pie despite their evident lack of resources. The conversation flowed naturally, revealing a portrait of resilience. Logan's father worked long hours at a local mill, while his mother maintained their home and looked after the children. They spoke of challenges, but also of gratitude for what they had, a sentiment Alexander found both humbling and alien. As the evening unfolded, Alexander learned more about Logan's philosophy. The boy was fascinated by fixing things, not just machines, but situations, problems, and even people's moods. He saw his actions as small contributions to a larger good. "The world's like a big puzzle," Logan explained, his eyes alight with excitement. "Every little piece matters. If you don't fix what's in front of you, the whole thing falls apart." These words stayed with Alexander long after he left the farm that evening. For years, he had operated in a world where problems were solved with money, where transactions replaced interactions. Yet Logan and his family had shown him another way, one rooted in humility, community, and purpose. It was a stark contrast to his life of excess, where connections often felt shallow and self-serving. On the drive back to his hotel, Alexander replayed the events of the day. The boy's refusal of money had not been an act of defiance, but a declaration of values and assertion that some things couldn't be bought or sold. Alexander couldn't help but wonder, how had he strayed so far from those values? Once, as a young man struggling to make his mark, he had cherished every act of kindness shown to him. But somewhere along the way, he had lost sight of those moments, burying them beneath layers of ambition and materialism. That night, Alexander found himself unable to sleep. The conversation with Logan's family echoed in his mind, intertwining with memories of his own childhood. He had grown up in a modest home, not unlike the Miller farm, where his parents had instilled in him the importance of hard work and integrity. Somewhere along the path to success, he had forgotten those lessons. Now Logan had rekindled them, reminding him that the measure of a person wasn't in their wealth, but in their actions and the lives they touched. The following morning, Alexander made a decision. He would not let this be a fleeting moment of reflection, easily forgotten in the bustle of his life. Logan's words had ignited a spark, and Alexander resolved to honor that spark by taking action. But what could a man like him offer to a boy who already seemed richer in spirit than most adults he knew? The answer, he realized, lay not in charity but in opportunity. He would find a way to help Logan and his family, not out of pity, but out of respect for their resilience and values. As Alexander began formulating a plan, he knew that his journey with Logan was far from over. There was much to learn from the boy who had refused money, And Alexander was determined to ensure that the kindness Logan had shown him would not only be repaid, but multiplied. And so, the seed of transformation was planted. Little did Alexander know, his actions would soon set off a chain of events that would change not only Logan's life, but also his own, and perhaps even the destiny of an entire community. But what steps would Alexander take to turn his resolve into reality? And how would his efforts shape the lives of those around him? Stay with me as we uncover the next chapter of this extraordinary journey. The sun was just beginning to rise over the hills of Asheville when Alexander found himself back at the Miller farm. Something about the simplicity of the place had drawn him back, like a magnet pulling him towards something he didn't yet fully understand. This time, he came with intention. Alexander wanted to see beyond the veneer of a kind family. He wanted to immerse himself in their world, to understand the depth of their struggles and the resilience that kept them standing tall despite it all. Logan greeted him warmly, as though they had known each other for years. There was no pretense in his smile, no guardedness or suspicion. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes. You're back," the boy said, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. Alexander chuckled. "Call me Alexander. I hope you don't mind me stopping by unannounced." Logan shook his head. "Not at all. We're always happy to have visitors." That morning, Alexander spent hours observing life on the Miller farm. It was a scene of perpetual motion. Logan's father was up early, tending to the livestock before heading to his job at the mill. His mother, though visibly tired, moved with an efficiency born of necessity, juggling chores and keeping the household running smoothly. Even Logan's younger siblings pitched in, their laughter punctuating the morning air as they chased the chickens and helped gather eggs. But what struck Alexander most was not the activity itself, but the spirit in which it was carried out. There was no bitterness or complaint, only a quiet sense of purpose and gratitude. Every task, no matter how small, was performed with care and attention. It was a stark contrast to the world Alexander knew, where people often treated their work as a means to an end, chasing promotions and accolades with little regard for the journey itself. Over a modest breakfast of homemade biscuits and fresh eggs, Alexander finally broached the subject that had been on his mind since their first meeting. "Logan, when you helped me with my car and then refused the money, why did you do that?" The boy paused, as though considering the question carefully. "I guess it's just the way I was raised," he said, glancing at his parents. "We don't have much, but we believe in helping each other. My dad says that kindness is like planting seeds. You never know what might grow from it." Alexander was silent for a moment, letting the words sink in. Kindness as a seed. It was such a simple idea, yet so profound. He thought about his own life, the years he had spent accumulating wealth and status, and how rarely he had stopped to plant those metaphorical seeds. The more he listened to Logan and his family, the more he realized how much he had missed in his relentless pursuit of success. As the day went on, Alexander explored more of the community. Logan offered to show him around, and together they visited the small local school, the corner store where families bartered for goods, and the church that served as the town's gathering place. Everywhere they went, people greeted Logan with warmth and familiarity. It was clear that he was a cherished member of this close-knit community. One encounter stood out in particular. At the school, Alexander met Mrs. Dunbar, Logan's teacher, who spoke passionately about the boy's potential. "Logan has a mind like a sponge," she said, her eyes lighting up. "He's always tinkering, always curious. If he had access to more resources, there's no telling what he could achieve." Alexander filed this away in his mind, recognizing the spark of opportunity. Perhaps this was the way he could help, not by simply giving money, but by creating a pathway for Logan to reach his full potential. By the end of the day, Alexander felt as though he had stepped into a different world, a world where people measured wealth not by what they owned, but by the relationships they nurtured and the values they upheld. It was a revelation for a man who had spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, often at the expense of his own personal connections. The simplicity of life in Asheville wasn't just humbling, it was inspiring. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields, Alexander sat with the Miller family on their porch. The conversation turned to dreams and aspirations. Logan spoke excitedly about his love for building and fixing things, describing how he once repaired a broken radio using nothing but scrap parts and a manual he had found at the library. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he talked about his desire to one day become an engineer. Alexander listened intently, a plan beginning to take shape in his mind. He saw in Logan not just a boy with potential, but a mirror reflecting the version of himself he had once been, a young dreamer with big ideas and little means. He realized that this was his chance to do something meaningful, not just for Logan, but for himself as well. For too long, he had been chasing accomplishments that felt hollow. Perhaps this was his opportunity to plant those seeds of kindness and watch them grow. As the evening came to an end, Alexander thanked the Millers for their hospitality, promising to return soon. As he drove away, he couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose that had been absent from his life for far too long. He had come to Asheville by chance, but now he was leaving with a mission. What Alexander didn't yet realize was that his decision to stay involved in Logan's life would set off a series of events that would ripple far beyond the boundaries of this small town. The seeds of kindness he planned to plant would not only transform Logan's future, but would also lead to a profound personal awakening for Alexander himself. In the next chapter, we'll uncover how Alexander takes his first steps toward turning dreams into reality, forging a bond with Logan that would change them both forever. Stay with me as we continue this heartwarming journey of transformation and purpose. The following week, Alexander returned to the Miller farm, this time with more than a desire to listen. He had spent nights sketching out ideas, considering ways to create lasting change for Logan and his family without diminishing their dignity or the values they held dear. He knew that his help needed to be more than a fleeting gesture. It had to be something that would empower, inspire, and truly transform their circumstances. When Alexander arrived, Logan was tinkering with an old lawnmower that had seen better days. The boy's hands moved deftly, his brow furrowed in concentration as he adjusted a series of wires. The engine sputtered to life, and Logan whooped with joy. Alexander watched from a distance, a smile tugging at his lips. In that moment, he felt a renewed sense of conviction. Logan had a gift, and it deserved to be nurtured. "Logan," Alexander called out, walking toward him. The boy wiped his hands on a rag and turned to greet him. "I've been thinking," Alexander began, his tone serious but warm. "You have a talent for fixing things, and I think it's time we take that talent to the next level." Logan tilted his head, curiosity lighting up his face. "What do you mean?" Alexander crouched down, meeting Logan's gaze. "I want to help you pursue your dreams. What would you say if I told you we could build something together, something that could change your life?" Logan's eyes widened, but before he could respond, Alexander continued. "I spoke to Mrs. Dunbar, and she told me about your interest in engineering. What if we set up a workshop here, where you could explore that interest further? A place where you could learn, experiment, and grow." Logan was stunned into silence, his mind racing with possibilities. "You'd do that for me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alexander nodded. "This isn't charity, Logan. It's an investment in you, in your future, and in the difference I know you'll make." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Alexander brought in tools, materials, and even a small team of contractors to renovate an old barn on the Miller property. The barn had been unused for years, its wooden beams sagging and its windows cracked. But Alexander saw potential in it, just as he saw potential in Logan. Together, they worked to transform the space into a fully functional workshop, complete with workbenches, shelves for tools, and even a small library of engineering manuals and blueprints. Logan threw himself into the project with boundless enthusiasm, learning from the contractors and picking up new skills along the way. For Alexander, watching Logan work was a revelation. The boy's passion was infectious, reminding him of his own younger self back when he had built his first business from scratch with little more than determination and grit. In Logan, Alexander saw not just a reflection of his past, but a glimpse of the legacy he hoped to leave behind. As the workshop took shape, Alexander and Logan's bond grew stronger. They spent hours discussing ideas, troubleshooting problems, and even sharing stories about their lives. Alexander opened up about his own journey, the struggles he had faced, and the mistakes he had made along the way. Logan, in turn, shared his dreams of one day creating machines that could make life easier for people, particularly those in struggling communities like his own. Their conversations were a meeting of minds and hearts, bridging the gap between generations and experiences. One evening, as they stood in the newly completed workshop, Alexander handed Logan a small gift, a pristine set of tools engraved with the boy's initials. "These are yours," Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. "Use them to build something amazing." Logan stared at the tools, his hands trembling slightly as he ran his fingers over the engravings. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know what to say." Alexander placed a hand on his shoulder. "Say you'll use them well. Say you'll never stop dreaming." The impact of the workshop extended beyond Logan. The Millers found new hope in seeing their son's dreams take flight, and the community took notice as well. Neighbors stopped by to see the workshop, marveling at the transformation and the opportunities it promised. Some even began bringing their own broken equipment for Logan to repair, creating a ripple effect of progress and cooperation. The boy who once fixed a car tire on a lonely road was now becoming a beacon of possibility for his entire town. But the true turning point came when Logan, with Alexander's guidance, designed and built his first invention, a small solar-powered water pump to help irrigate the Miller's garden. It was a simple device, but its impact was profound. The Millers could now grow more crops with less effort, improving both their diet and their finances. The pump became a symbol of what could be achieved with a little ingenuity and a lot of determination. For Alexander, watching Logan's invention come to life was one of the proudest moments of his life. It wasn't just the device itself that moved him. It was the spark of confidence he saw in Logan's eyes, the realization that the boy now believed in his own potential. It was a reminder of the power of small gestures and the extraordinary change they could set in motion. As the weeks turned into months, Alexander began to see the full scope of what he had set out to do. The workshop was more than just a building. It was a seedbed for dreams, a place where hope and ambition could take root. And Logan, with his boundless curiosity and unwavering determination, was the heart of it all. Yet, Alexander knew that this was only the beginning. Logan's journey was far from over, and neither was his own. The time they spent together had rekindled something in Alexander, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. He realized that helping Logan wasn't just about giving back. It was about rediscovering his own humanity and reconnecting with the values he had once held dear. But how would Alexander's newfound purpose shape the future? And what challenges lay ahead as Logan's ambitions began to grow? Stay with me as we delve deeper into this extraordinary tale of transformation, purpose, and the power of believing in one another. As the seasons turned, the workshop became the beating heart of the Miller farm, a place alive with creativity and progress. Logan had transformed into a young visionary, his hands constantly at work and his mind brimming with ideas. Alexander often found himself marveling at the boy's determination. But what truly moved him was how Logan's dreams were never just about himself. "If I can make life better for someone else," Logan often said, "then I know I'm doing the right thing." For Alexander, these words were a constant reminder of the values he had lost and was slowly rediscovering. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned vibrant shades of orange and gold, Alexander sat on the porch of the Miller home, sipping coffee with Logan's father, Thomas. The two men had developed an easy camaraderie over the months, their conversations often touching on life, family, and the pursuit of meaning. "You know," Thomas began, his voice thoughtful, "I used to think success was about how much you could provide for your family. But watching Logan, he's taught me something different. Success is about leaving the world a little better than you found it." Alexander nodded, the weight of those words settling deep within him. He had spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, amassing wealth and power, yet he couldn't recall the last time he had truly felt successful in the way Thomas described. As the sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over the fields, Alexander found himself reflecting on his own journey. He thought back to his early years, when he had started his first business with little more than a borrowed desk and a handful of dreams. Back then, every small victory had felt monumental, every risk a thrilling adventure. But as his wealth grew, so too did his distance from the things that once brought him joy. The relationships he had neglected, the passions he had abandoned, all of it now seemed like a hollow trade-off. It was Logan who had reignited that spark, reminding Alexander of the purpose he had lost along the way. One day, Logan approached Alexander with an idea that would challenge both of them in ways they hadn't anticipated. "Mr. Hayes," Logan began, holding up a rough sketch of a new project. "I want to build something bigger, something that can help more people, not just here but everywhere." The drawing depicted a modular wind turbine, designed to be affordable and easy to assemble in remote or underserved areas. Logan explained how he had researched the energy needs of nearby communities and envisioned a way to provide sustainable power. "But I don't know where to start," he admitted, looking up at Alexander with both hope and uncertainty. Alexander studied the sketch, his mind already racing with possibilities. "You've got the vision," he said, his tone encouraging. "Now we just need a plan." Together, they began laying the groundwork for what would become their most ambitious project yet. Alexander reached out to his network of engineers and innovators, people he had worked with over the years but lost touch with in his pursuit of wealth. Many of them were intrigued by the idea and eager to help, inspired by the sincerity of Logan's mission. The workshop buzzed with activity as the project came to life. Logan worked tirelessly, learning everything he could from the professionals Alexander brought in. Alexander, too, found himself fully immersed, not just as a mentor, but as an active participant. He rolled up his sleeves, sharing his knowledge and rediscovering the satisfaction of creating something with his own hands. It was a stark departure from the boardrooms and spreadsheets that had dominated his life for so long. Here, amidst the hum of tools and the chatter of collaboration, Alexander felt truly alive. As the prototype for the wind turbine neared completion, word of Logan's efforts began to spread beyond Asheville. Local media picked up the story, framing it as a tale of innovation and community spirit. People from neighboring towns came to see the workshop, drawn by the idea that someone so young could aspire to make such a significant impact. Logan handled the attention with humility, always emphasizing the teamwork that had made it possible. "It's not just my dream," he told a reporter one afternoon. "It's a shared effort. Every person who believes in this is a part of it." For Alexander, watching Logan step into the spotlight was both inspiring and bittersweet. He saw in the boy a reflection of his own younger self, unburdened by the compromises that had later clouded his vision. Yet he also recognized that this journey was about more than Logan's growth. It was about his own transformation. The more time Alexander spent with Logan and the Millers, the more he realized how much he had to unlearn and relearn about life's true priorities. On the day the wind turbine was unveiled, the entire community gathered to celebrate. The device stood tall against the backdrop of the mountains, a testament to ingenuity and perseverance. As Logan flipped the switch and the blades began to turn, the crowd erupted into cheers. For the first time in years, Alexander felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not because of the project's success, but because of what it represented: hope, collaboration, and the power of believing in one another. That evening, as the festivities wound down, Logan and Alexander sat together in the workshop, reflecting on the journey they had shared. "You've changed my life, Mr. Hayes," Logan said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. Alexander shook his head. "No, Logan, you've changed mine. You reminded me of what I'd forgotten, that true success isn't measured in dollars, but in the difference we make." As they sat in companionable silence, the bond between them felt unbreakable, forged through shared dreams and mutual respect. Alexander knew that this was just the beginning of something much larger than either of them could have imagined. But how would this newfound purpose ripple out into the world? What would the next chapter of their journey bring? Stay with me as we explore the lasting legacy of a simple act of kindness, and the extraordinary impact it can have on lives, communities, and the future itself. The morning after the unveiling of the wind turbine, Alexander awoke with a rare sense of peace. The events of the previous day played over in his mind, each moment a reminder of how far he and Logan had come since their fateful meeting on that rural road. But as he sipped his coffee and looked out at the sunrise over the Miller farm, he realized their journey was far from over. The turbine had been a triumph, but it was just one piece of a much larger puzzle, a spark that had the potential to ignite something far greater. Logan, as always, was up early, already sketching out new ideas at the workshop. Alexander joined him, intrigued by the boy's focus. "What's on your mind today?" Alexander asked, leaning over the workbench to glance at the rough blueprints. Logan grinned, his eyes alight with excitement. "I've been thinking about the kids in our community," he began. "A lot of them don't have the resources to explore their interests the way I've been able to. What if we created a space for them, a place where they can learn, build, and dream just like I have?" Alexander's heart swelled with pride. Logan's vision wasn't limited to himself or even his immediate family. It extended to the next generation. It was an idea as ambitious as it was selfless, and Alexander knew it had the potential to transform not just Asheville, but any community willing to embrace it. "I think that's a brilliant idea," Alexander said, his voice filled with conviction. "And I'm going to help you make it happen." The plan began to take shape almost immediately. Logan and Alexander decided to convert part of the workshop into a community learning center, a place equipped with tools, books, and resources where young minds could explore science, technology, and the arts. They envisioned a space that would inspire creativity and innovation, fostering a culture of learning and collaboration. Word spread quickly, and before long, volunteers from the community began offering their time and expertise to bring the project to life. Teachers donated books, local tradespeople provided tools, and parents eagerly signed up their children for what was being called the Dreamers Workshop. For Alexander, the project became a labor of love. He immersed himself in every detail, from organizing the layout of the space to securing additional funding from his business contacts. Yet, it wasn't just his wealth that drove the project forward. It was his rediscovered sense of purpose. The Dreamers Workshop wasn't just about providing opportunities for others. It was about creating a legacy that mattered, one rooted in compassion and the shared belief that everyone deserved a chance to succeed. As the weeks turned into months, the workshop buzzed with activity. Children of all ages flocked to the center, their curiosity ignited by the possibilities it offered. Some gravitated toward robotics, tinkering with circuits and sensors under Logan's patient guidance. Others explored woodworking, art, or even gardening, finding joy in creating something tangible with their own hands. The Dreamers Workshop became a beacon of hope, a place where barriers dissolved and potential flourished. For Logan, watching his peers thrive in the environment he had helped create was a deeply fulfilling experience. Yet, he never lost sight of the gratitude he felt for Alexander's role in making it all possible. One evening, as they worked together to repair a donated 3D printer, Logan turned to Alexander with a question that had been on his mind for some time. "Why did you choose to stay?" he asked. "You could have fixed your car and gone back to your life, but instead, you stayed here and helped us." Alexander paused, the question cutting straight to the heart of his transformation. "Because I needed this just as much as you did," he admitted. "When I met you, Logan, I was lost. I had everything money could buy, but none of the things that truly matter. You reminded me of what's important: connection, purpose, and the chance to make a difference. Staying wasn't a choice, it was a necessity." The bond between Alexander and Logan deepened with each passing day, their partnership a testament to what could be achieved when different generations and perspectives came together for a common goal. But the ripple effects of their efforts extended far beyond the workshop. Inspired by the success of the Dreamers Workshop, other communities began reaching out, eager to replicate the model in their own towns. Alexander and Logan found themselves at the center of a growing movement, their story serving as a blueprint for how small acts of kindness could lead to monumental change. Yet, with growth came challenges. Scaling their efforts required resources, coordination, and a level of organization that neither Alexander nor Logan had anticipated. There were moments of doubt, times when the sheer magnitude of what they were trying to accomplish felt overwhelming. But each time they faced an obstacle, they leaned on one another, their shared determination pulling them through. Alexander often marveled at Logan's resilience, the boy's unwavering belief that anything was possible if people worked together. As their efforts gained national attention, Alexander was invited to speak at a conference on social innovation. Standing before an audience of policymakers, educators, and philanthropists, he shared the story of how a chance encounter with a boy on a dusty road had changed his life. Logan taught me that the most profound impact doesn't come from grand gestures, but from the willingness to invest in others, he said. When we empower people to dream, we're not just changing their lives, we're changing the world. The speech resonated deeply, sparking conversations about how communities could foster similar initiatives. Alexander and Logan were soon inundated with invitations to collaborate, their partnership becoming a symbol of what was possible when compassion and action met. But despite the growing spotlight, they remained grounded in the simple values that had brought them together: kindness, humility, and the belief that everyone had the power to create change. Back in Asheville, the Dreamers Workshop continued to thrive, its walls filled with the laughter and determination of the young minds it served. Logan, now seen as a leader in his community, often reflected on how far they had come. But he knew their journey was far from over. "We've built something incredible," he told Alexander one evening, "but there's still so much more we can do." Alexander smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "And we will," he said. "Together we'll keep planting seeds, one dream at a time." But what happens when those seeds grow beyond their expectations, reaching places they never imagined? Stay with me as we explore the extraordinary legacy of this partnership and the enduring power of kindness to transform lives, one small act at a time. The Dreamers Workshop had become more than just a local hub for learning and innovation. It was the heart of a movement that was steadily reshaping Asheville. The workshop's success inspired not only the children who poured in each day, but also the adults who began to see the possibilities of a future built on collaboration and shared purpose. For Alexander, it was as though the community itself had become an extension of the seeds of kindness he had helped plant in Logan. And like those seeds, the community was beginning to blossom in ways he could never have foreseen. It started with small changes. A group of parents, moved by what their children were learning, began offering evening classes for adults, teaching skills like basic mechanics, home repair, and even financial literacy. Local businesses partnered with the Dreamers Workshop to provide internships, giving young people the opportunity to apply their newfound knowledge in real-world settings. The workshop also became a space for creative problem-solving, where residents could brainstorm solutions to community challenges, from improving water access to designing more sustainable farming practices. But the ripple effects didn't stop there. Inspired by the workshop's emphasis on sustainability, Logan and a group of his peers launched a project to revitalize Asheville's aging infrastructure. With Alexander's guidance, they worked to secure grants and sponsorships, ultimately designing and installing solar panels on the roofs of local schools and community centers. The initiative not only reduced energy costs, but also demonstrated how innovation could benefit the entire town. For Alexander, watching Logan step into a leadership role was a source of immense pride. The boy who had once fixed his car tire on a dusty road had grown into a young man capable of inspiring an entire town. Yet, Logan's humility remained unchanged. Whenever he was praised for his efforts, he deflected the credit to the people who had supported him. "None of this would have happened without Mr. Hayes," he often said, his gratitude as genuine as it was unassuming. But Alexander knew the truth. Logan's heart, vision, and determination were the true driving forces behind everything they had achieved. Asheville itself was changing in ways that seemed almost miraculous. The workshop's projects created new jobs, drawing skilled workers and young professionals back to the town. The economy began to thrive, fueled not by outside investment, but by the ingenuity and hard work of its own residents. The once forgotten community became a model for how small towns could harness their unique strengths to build a brighter future. Visitors came from far and wide to see what was happening in Asheville, eager to learn from the success of the Dreamers Workshop. One of the most profound moments came when Logan was invited to speak at a statewide education summit. Standing before an audience of educators, policymakers, and innovators, he shared the story of how a simple act of kindness had sparked a chain reaction that transformed his life and his community. "Kindness is a catalyst," Logan said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "It doesn't just change the person who receives it, it changes the person who gives it and everyone they touch. If we want to build a better world, we have to start with small acts of compassion and the belief that every person has something valuable to contribute." The audience gave him a standing ovation, moved not only by his words, but by the authenticity with which he spoke. Among those in the crowd was Alexander, who felt a lump in his throat as he watched Logan receive the recognition he so richly deserved. It was a moment that validated everything they had worked for, a reminder that the most profound changes often begin with the simplest of gestures. But even as their efforts transformed Asheville, Alexander and Logan knew their work was far from over. The demand for similar workshops in other towns and cities grew, and with it came the challenge of scaling their model while preserving the values that made it special. They began traveling together, visiting communities eager to replicate the Dreamers Workshop and sharing their experiences with those ready to embark on their own journeys of transformation. Through it all, Alexander found himself rediscovering a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in decades. The work they were doing wasn't about profits or accolades. It was about creating opportunities, fostering connections, and empowering people to dream. For a man who had once measured his success in dollars and deals, this new purpose was a revelation. He often reflected on how different his life might have been if he had met someone like Logan earlier. Someone who could have reminded him of the importance of human connection before he lost sight of it. Asheville continued to thrive, its story becoming a beacon of hope for communities everywhere. The once struggling town had been transformed into a vibrant hub of innovation, creativity, and resilience, all thanks to the vision of a young boy who refused to accept a $100 bill. For Logan, the journey was just beginning. The success of the Dreamers Workshop and the projects it had spawned only deepened his commitment to making a difference. He dreamed of one day building a network of workshops across the country, each one a place where young minds could discover their potential and create meaningful change. Alexander, now firmly rooted in his role as both mentor and partner, vowed to support Logan every step of the way. Their bond had become more than a friendship. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest acts of kindness could change the world. But how would Logan's growing vision shape the next phase of their journey? And what unexpected challenges and triumphs would await them as they worked to expand their impact? Stay with me as we explore the continuing story of transformation, inspiration, and the enduring power of compassion to create a better future. Years passed, and the Dreamers Workshop had become more than a community center. It was a movement, spreading its roots far beyond Asheville. Logan, now in his mid-20s, had grown into a confident and accomplished young man. His engineering skills had flourished, and he was now the lead designer on numerous projects aimed at sustainability and community improvement. Yet, through all his successes, he remained deeply connected to the values that had shaped him: humility, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the power of kindness. Alexander, though older and slightly grayer, was still by Logan's side, his energy renewed by their shared mission. Together, they had built a network of Dreamers Workshops across the country, each one modeled after the original, but tailored to the unique needs of its community. They worked tirelessly to ensure that these centers remained true to their purpose, serving as beacons of opportunity for those who needed it most. For Alexander, every new workshop felt like a small redemption, a way of giving back for the years he had spent chasing a different kind of success. One crisp autumn morning, Alexander stood outside the original Dreamers Workshop, watching as a group of children eagerly filed inside. Their laughter filled the air, a joyful reminder of the life and hope the workshop had brought to Asheville. Logan joined him a moment later, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Logan said, his voice tinged with awe. Alexander nodded, his gaze fixed on the bustling activity inside. "And to think it all started with a flat tire." Logan chuckled, but his expression quickly grew thoughtful. "You know, Mr. Hayes," he began, "I've been thinking a lot about what's next. I don't want to just expand the workshops. I want to create something lasting, something that continues even after we're gone." Alexander turned to face him, sensing the weight of Logan's words. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. Logan hesitated for a moment, then said, "A foundation. Something that can fund scholarships, mentorship programs, and even community projects. A way to ensure that the cycle of kindness keeps going." Alexander felt a swell of pride as he listened to Logan outline his vision. The boy who had once repaired his car on the side of a dusty road had grown into a man who was shaping the future. And yet, despite all his accomplishments, Logan remained grounded, his focus always on the people he could help rather than the recognition he might receive. "It's a brilliant idea," Alexander said, clapping a hand on Logan's shoulder. "Let's make it happen." The creation of the Dreamers Foundation was a monumental undertaking, but Logan and Alexander approached it with the same determination that had driven their earlier efforts. They worked closely with educators, community leaders, and philanthropists to design programs that would empower young people to pursue their dreams. The foundation offered scholarships for students in underserved areas, mentorship opportunities for aspiring innovators, and grants for projects that addressed pressing community needs. It was a natural evolution of their mission, and it quickly gained momentum. As the foundation grew, so too did Logan's reputation. He was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and even international summits, sharing his story and the lessons he had learned along the way. Yet no matter how far his travels took him, Logan always returned to Asheville. The small town remained his anchor, a constant reminder of where it had all begun. He continued to mentor the children at the Dreamers Workshop, finding joy in watching their excitement as they discovered their own potential. For Alexander, the journey had been transformative in ways he could never have anticipated. He had started out as a successful businessman, defined by his wealth and accomplishments. But through his partnership with Logan, he had found a deeper sense of purpose, one that couldn't be measured in dollars or accolades. He often reflected on the irony of it all. The boy who had refused his money had given him something far more valuable in return. One day, as they worked together in the original workshop, Logan asked Alexander a question that took him by surprise. "Have you ever thought about what your legacy will be?" Alexander paused, setting down the tool he had been holding. "I used to think about it all the time," he admitted. "Back then, I thought legacy was about how much you could achieve, how many people knew your name. But now I see it differently. My legacy isn't in what I've done, it's in what we've built together and the lives we've touched along the way." Logan smiled, his expression one of quiet understanding. "You've taught me that legacy isn't about being remembered, it's about making a difference." The words hung in the air, a testament to the bond they had forged over the years. It was a bond built on trust, respect, and a shared commitment to something greater than themselves. As time went on, the impact of the Dreamers Foundation grew beyond anything they could have imagined. The workshops and programs they had established produced a new generation of leaders, innovators, and changemakers, each one inspired by the values of kindness and community. Logan's story became a symbol of what was possible when people believed in one another, a reminder that even the smallest acts of compassion could ripple out to create extraordinary change. Alexander, now in his twilight years, took comfort in knowing that the work they had started would continue long after he was gone. And Logan, now an accomplished engineer and advocate for social innovation, remained steadfast in his mission to build a better world. Together, they had proven that kindness wasn't just an ideal, it was a force capable of transforming lives, communities, and futures. And so, the cycle of kindness continued, a testament to the enduring power of one small act. What began with a flat tire on a lonely road had grown into a legacy that would inspire generations to come. A story of hope, resilience, and the limitless potential of the human spirit. The years flowed on like a gentle stream, and though time had left its mark on Alexander, his passion for their mission never wavered. He spent most of his days in Asheville, his role shifting from an active participant to a mentor for both Logan and the growing number of individuals involved in the Dreamers Foundation. The foundation had expanded its reach across the country and beyond, leaving a profound impact on countless lives. Yet for Alexander, the most rewarding part of the journey was witnessing Logan's continued growth, not just as a professional, but as a compassionate leader. One spring morning, as the cherry blossoms painted the town in hues of pink and white, Logan received a letter that would change the trajectory of their work. It was from an international humanitarian organization, inviting him to collaborate on a project to bring sustainable energy solutions to remote villages in Southeast Asia. The organization had been inspired by the story of the Dreamers Workshop and saw potential in applying their innovative approach on a global scale. Logan read the letter aloud to Alexander, his excitement tempered by a trace of uncertainty. "This is an incredible opportunity," he said, "but I can't help wondering if it's too ambitious." Alexander leaned back in his chair, a knowing smile on his face. "Logan," he began, his voice carrying the weight of years of wisdom, "ambition isn't the problem. The question is whether your ambition serves others or just yourself. And knowing you, I think we both know the answer to that." Logan's uncertainty melted away, replaced by a determined spark in his eyes. "Then let's do it," he said. And just like that, a new chapter of their journey began. The project took them far from Asheville, but it carried the same core principles that had guided their work from the beginning. In the remote villages they visited, they saw challenges that were daunting but not insurmountable. Homes with no electricity, schools without proper lighting, and communities relying on outdated methods that were neither efficient nor sustainable. But Logan approached each challenge with the same ingenuity and compassion that had defined his work back home. He collaborated with local engineers and villagers, designing systems that were not only effective, but also easy to maintain with the resources available. For Alexander, the experience was humbling. He spent his days documenting their progress, sharing their story with the world in the hopes of inspiring others to take similar actions. He often found himself marveling at the universality of kindness, how it transcended language, culture, and geography. The smiles of gratitude they received from the villagers reminded him of the simple truth he had learned all those years ago. The most profound changes often begin with a single selfless act. Back in Asheville, the foundation continued to thrive under the leadership of a dedicated team, many of whom had been mentored by Logan and Alexander. The original Dreamers Workshop remained a symbol of the movement's roots, a place where children and adults alike could come to learn, create, and dream. The town itself had become a hub of innovation and community spirit, attracting people from across the nation who wanted to see firsthand what a united effort could achieve. As the global project neared completion, Logan and Alexander returned to Asheville to celebrate another milestone, the 10th anniversary of the Dreamers Workshop. The event brought together people from all walks of life, students who had benefited from the programs, volunteers who had given their time, and community members who had supported the mission from the very beginning. Standing on the stage before the gathered crowd, Logan and Alexander reflected on the journey that had brought them there. Logan spoke first, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "When we started this, I couldn't have imagined how far it would go. All I wanted was to fix things, to make life a little better for the people around me. But what I've learned is that fixing things isn't just about tools and machines, it's about people. It's about coming together to build something bigger than ourselves. And none of this would have been possible without each and every one of you." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the workshop that had become a second home for so many. Then Alexander stepped forward, his presence commanding yet gentle. "I've lived a long life," he began, his tone reflective. "And I've had my share of successes, But I can say without hesitation that what we've built together, is the greatest accomplishment of my life. Not because of what it's done for me, but because of what it's done for others. Kindness is the foundation of everything we've achieved, and it will continue to be the legacy we leave behind. The applause was thunderous, a chorus of gratitude and admiration for the two men who had turned a chance encounter into a lifelong mission. That evening, as the celebration continued, Alexander and Logan sat together on the porch of the Miller farm, watching the stars twinkle above. The farm had changed over the years, renovated and expanded with the resources the foundation had brought, but it still held the same warmth and simplicity that had first drawn Alexander in. "Do you ever think about that day on the road?" Logan asked, his voice quiet. Alexander smiled, a faraway look in his eyes. "Every day," he replied. "It reminds me that even the smallest moments can change everything. If you hadn't stopped to help me, none of this would have happened." Logan shook his head. "And if you hadn't believed in me, I might never have dreamed this big." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the bond between them as strong as ever. The journey that had begun with a flat tire had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. A movement that had touched lives around the world, a legacy built on kindness and compassion. And though their work was far from finished, they both knew that the seeds they had planted would continue to grow long after they were gone. Because kindness is a cycle, and every act of it has the power to spark a future brighter than anyone can imagine. As the years wove their tapestry of change, Logan's name began to echo far beyond Asheville, symbolizing innovation driven by empathy. He had become a force for global change, but what defined him most was his humility. No matter where his work took him, Logan always referred to the values instilled in him by his family and the mentorship of Alexander. Together, they were proof that a small act of kindness could ripple outward, creating waves of transformation across generations and borders. Alexander, now in his 80s, spent more time reflecting than traveling. Though his body was slower, his mind remained sharp, and his influence on the Dreamers Foundation continued through the wisdom he imparted to the team. He cherished his quiet mornings on the porch of the Miller farm, where life had once seemed so distant from the world he inhabited. The farm had grown into a hub for ideas, its once quiet fields now bustling with the laughter of visitors, students, and volunteers who came to learn from the legacy it represented. One day, Logan arrived at the farm after a long trip overseas, his face lighting up as he spotted Alexander sitting on the porch. He carried with him a carefully wrapped package, which he set on the table before sitting beside his mentor. "I brought you something," Logan said, his voice tinged with excitement. Alexander raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "What is it?" Logan carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a weathered photo frame containing a picture of the two of them standing in front of the first completed wind turbine. The edges of the photo were lined with handwritten messages from children, families, and volunteers who had been touched by their work. Alexander ran his fingers over the frame, his eyes misting as he read the words of gratitude and hope. "This," he began, his voice catching, "this is everything." Logan smiled. "I wanted you to have something that shows just how far your kindness has traveled." Alexander placed the frame in his lap, his hands trembling slightly as he held it. "It wasn't just me, Logan. None of this would have been possible without your heart, your vision. You've taken a simple act and turned it into something I never could have imagined." Logan leaned back, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun was beginning to set. "I think about that day often," he said quietly. "I remember how you looked frustrated, lost, but also curious. I didn't know why I felt compelled to stop and help, but now I realize it was one of the most important decisions of my life." Alexander chuckled softly. "It's funny, isn't it? How a flat tire brought us here. Life has a way of surprising you like that." Their conversation drifted into comfortable silence as the golden light of dusk bathed the landscape in warmth. The two men, bound by a shared journey, knew they had accomplished more than either of them could have imagined. The Dreamers Foundation had grown into an international network, with workshops, programs, and initiatives that spanned continents. More importantly, the ideals it represented: kindness, collaboration, and the belief in human potential had taken root in the hearts of countless people. As night fell, Alexander turned to Logan, his expression one of quiet resolve. "You know, my time here is getting shorter," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. Logan's smile faltered, but he nodded, understanding what his mentor meant. "I know," he replied, "but what we've built will last, and so will the lessons you've taught me." Alexander smiled, the lines on his face deepening as he looked at Logan with pride. "That's all I could have hoped for." In the months that followed, Alexander's health began to decline, but his spirit remained unbroken. The people of Asheville rallied around him, visiting the farm to share stories of how the Dreamers Workshop had touched their lives. Children who had once been students returned as adults, sharing their successes and expressing gratitude for the opportunities they'd been given. Each visitor brought a piece of Alexander's legacy back to life, reminding him that his efforts had created something far greater than himself. When Alexander passed away peacefully in his sleep, the world mourned the loss of a man whose generosity and vision had inspired millions. Logan, devastated but determined, vowed to honor his mentor's memory by continuing their work with even greater resolve. A memorial service was held at the original Dreamers Workshop, where hundreds gathered to celebrate Alexander's life and the indelible mark he had left on the world. Logan stood before the crowd, his voice strong despite the grief that weighed on him. "Alexander Hayes taught me that one small act of kindness can change everything," he began, his words resonating with the crowd. "He believed in me when no one else did, and he showed me that true success is measured not by what we achieve for ourselves, but by what we do for others." His legacy is not in the buildings or programs we've created. It's in the lives we've touched and the hope we've inspired. And it's up to all of us to carry that legacy forward. The memorial ended with a moment of quiet reflection as attendees lit candles in Alexander's honor. The glow of the flames seemed to carry his spirit, a reminder of the light he had brought into the world. As Logan watched the flickering lights, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Alexander's work wasn't finished. It never would be, because kindness was a cycle, a force that continued to grow and evolve with every act it inspired. In the years that followed, Logan expanded the Dreamers Foundation to reach even more communities, his efforts fueled by the lessons he had learned from Alexander. He traveled tirelessly, mentoring young leaders and ensuring that the values of compassion and collaboration remained at the heart of everything they did. And though he often found himself in far-flung corners of the globe, he always returned to Asheville, the place where it had all begun. The Miller farm remained a sanctuary, its porch a place where Logan could sit and reflect on the journey that had shaped his life. The photo frame Alexander had cherished still held a place of honor there, a tangible reminder of the day a flat tire set their extraordinary story into motion. And as Logan watched the sun dip below the horizon, he felt certain of one thing: the cycle of kindness they had started would continue, lighting the way for generations to come. As Logan sat on the porch of the Miller farm, gazing at the rolling hills that had witnessed so many pivotal moments, he felt a deep sense of peace. The seeds of kindness planted so many years ago had grown into a forest of hope and opportunity, touching lives far and wide. Yet he knew the story was far from over. The legacy he and Alexander had built would continue to inspire, reminding people that even the smallest acts could ignite profound change. The Dreamers Foundation now thrived as a testament to what compassion and resilience could achieve. Workshops around the globe buzzed with activity, children's laughter mingling with the hum of innovation. Leaders inspired by Logan and Alexander carried forward their mission, ensuring that the values of kindness and collaboration remained at the heart of the Foundation's work. And in every corner of the world, people shared stories of how one simple gesture, a boy refusing money to help a stranger, had sparked a chain reaction that transformed countless lives. Logan knew that the most important part of their work wasn't just building a better future. It was inspiring others to believe they could do the same. The cycle of kindness had no end, and every person who contributed became a vital part of its momentum. And now, it's your turn. If this story touched your heart, Imagine the impact we can create together. Click the subscribe button below to join our community and stay connected to more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of compassion, resilience, and human connection. Don't forget to hit the like button if you believe in the cycle of kindness and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or an inspiring phrase like, "Kindness grows when shared." And if this story resonated with you, explore our other videos filled with lessons, hope, and the extraordinary impact of ordinary acts. Together, let's keep the cycle of kindness alive. See you in the next story.